Hey everyone, it's Sauce, and today I want to talk about safety tips for solo hitchhiking as a woman while backpacking or as a more feminine presenting person. I think it's really easy, of course, for many reasons to be afraid of hitchhiking alone, but it certainly doesn't help that we are constantly being told that we're going to be murdered in the process. I can't even count the number of times that someone has stared at me, jaw gaping open, when I tell them that I hitchhike alone, and the follow-up is usually something along the lines of, well, are you bringing a gun at least? For context, if you're new here, I'm Sauce, and I've walked across the country twice now, the first time I started alone. So if you're interested in more content like this, tips for hiking solo, be sure to check out my channel and don't forget to subscribe. I won't deny that there are dangerous and predatory people out there and that things can go wrong. But overall, as women, I think we're told far too often to avoid something altogether rather than being given the tools to do something as safely as possible. So that's what I want to do today. Acknowledge the dangers of hitchhiking while solo, but also try and give you the tools so that the thought of hitchhiking solo doesn't keep you from through hiking at all if that is a concern for you. Men, I think some of these tips could definitely work for you too, so this isn't exclusive just to women. I also want to acknowledge that women of color and trans women will have different things to bring into consideration when hitchhiking solo, which I don't have experience dealing with. But I hope some of this information is still helpful to you, and I just want you to take from this video what is helpful and feel free to leave what isn't. As a word of encouragement, I do find that along a lot of the popular long distance hiking trails, the locals are used to seeing through hikers and hitchhikers, and they're very kind and they know exactly what you're out there for. And I find that comforting, and I feel like it's a very different experience than it would be hitchhiking in like a large city. And as a side note, or another form of encouragement, I guess, if solo hitchhiking is something that is an absolute deal breaker for you as part of a through hike, there are many ways that you can avoid it altogether. If you would feel more comfortable, many trail towns have lists of trail angels that can give rides, and with a little foresight and a satellite communicator or maybe hopefully cell phone service, you could potentially plan to have a ride at a lot of your road crossings, and you can try and arrange shuttles beforehand. If that isn't possible for the town that you're trying to get to or the particular road crossing that you're at, or if you don't have service or if you can't find a list or whatever, I think it's also possible for most trails to wait for a little while, and most likely another through hiker will join you at that road crossing or at that trailhead. I would just recommend planning for this if you know it's something that you're going to be doing by bringing some extra food in case you need to wait a little bit longer than you might expect. With all of that preface out of the way, here are the 9 tips I have for solo women who are hitchhiking while backpacking. First, you want to make sure that someone knows where you are and where you are going if at all possible. This can obviously be a bigger challenge on a through hike or while backpacking because not all trailheads have service, but whenever you do, or if you have cell service earlier in the day, it doesn't hurt to text someone and say, hey, I'm gonna be taking a hitch later. I'm gonna be leaving from this trailhead or this road crossing and going into this town. I'm hoping to be there around X time. That way someone is looking out for you and knows at least roughly when to expect you in town. I've also heard the tip to take a picture of the license plate of the car that you're getting into. This is especially helpful again if you have service, and make note of the make and model of the car that you're getting into and send that to someone else at home that you trust who can again keep an eye out for you. If this feels awkward to you, I've heard that you can always just kind of be upfront about it, and usually people are not going to be weird about it. If you're just like, oh, this is my little safety insurance thing that I do, they shouldn't give you a hard time. And if they do, that might be a red flag to not get in that hitch. You do have service, that way you can send the picture to someone again who is expecting you. And if you don't, you can at least kind of pretend that you have service. But that also brings me to my second tip, which is to carry a satellite communicator. Preferably, it would be one that can send custom text messages. This is kind of a recurring theme for me and advice that I give fairly often, but this is just another instance where having a satellite communicator can really come in handy and isn't just for like an SOS purpose. That way, even if you don't have service, you can let people know that you're heading to town in a hitch. And again, if something were to go super wrong, you do have that SOS as a last resort. My third tip is to carry some sort of self-defense tool and be sure to keep it on you. I really don't want this to come across fear-mongering because there's never been a time where I've been in a hitch and felt like I needed any sort of self-defense tool, but it certainly doesn't hurt to have it. But it's also no good to you if you put it in the trunk. For me, this is honestly usually my bear spray. It's a dual purpose item and it's already attached to my fanny pack hip belt, so it's not weird for me to just keep that with me when I get into a car and it's not too bulky. One thing to definitely keep in mind about bear spray though is that of course spraying it in an enclosed space like a car could be really detrimental for you as well, so just keep that in mind if you are planning to use it in that way. I've heard of people carrying pepper spray, tasers, Pepper gel, I've heard, can be really great because it's more pointed, more direct. It's not gonna blow in the wind. Basically, whatever you feel comfortable with using as a self-defense tool is the same thing that I would recommend using while hitchhiking or through hiking. Both of those tips sort of segue into this next one, which is to keep all of your stuff within reach if you can. I know with backpacks, it can be really hard and it's kind of a default to try and put them in a trunk, but especially if you're alone, I would recommend trying to just put your backpack on your lap or close by on a seat with you. At the very least, definitely have your self-defense tool and your satellite communicator on you while you're in a hitch. Because again, if you, for some reason, unfortunately need your self-defense tool or your SOS button, it's no good to you if it's not within reach. Another reason you might want to keep your entire backpack with you is that if you do end up wanting to bail out of this hitch and maybe they slow to a stop or something and you're like, I need to get out of this car right now, you don't want to have to worry about literally leaving your entire life behind in your backpack. If you have it with you, you can avoid that altogether, you can bail quickly, and you don't need to worry about it. Again, I've never had to do this, but it's just something to keep in mind, especially when you're alone. This next one could potentially feel awkward, but feeling awkward is a lot better than being in danger, and this tip is to turn down a hitch if you feel uncomfortable. If you're for some reason getting bad vibes from someone and you don't feel safe getting in their car, don't be afraid to say never mind. If someone pulls over and they seem intoxicated or there's some other reason that you don't feel safe getting in a car with them, it's a good idea to have an excuse ready. My go-to is usually, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. I told my friend I would wait for them. Thank you for stopping, but you can go on ahead. I don't need a ride right now. Another good one could be, oh no, I accidentally forgot a very important piece of gear at a water source a few miles back and I just realized I have to go get it. Thank you so much for stopping, but you can go ahead. It'll be a while. I like the friends one more personally because I feel like it also implies that there are people around that are expecting to see you, whereas the second one, if they are like uber creepy, they could maybe try and follow you in the woods or something. Again, I've never heard of or had this happen to me, but yeah, I think the first one is maybe just a little bit safer from a excuse perspective. My next tip is to talk about the people who are waiting for you in town, even if they don't actually exist. I'm gonna tell a quick non-through hiking anecdote to sort of illustrate why I feel like this is a good idea. Before I tell this story, I just wanna say that I was young and naive and I know I didn't make the best decisions and I already know that. I don't really need to be told in the comments or anything like that, but I do think one decision that I made on this night honestly saved me. So I was in college and I was going to bars with friends and they chose to go to a bar that I couldn't go to because I wasn't 21 yet. I ended up calling another friend who was at a bar on another side of town that allowed people in who were like 18 and up. I could definitely walk there from where I was, but it was definitely a really long walk and through sort of like the main part of this college town. As I'm alone walking on the road, there's plenty of other people around. A guy pulls over and asks if I want to ride. And because I was in this small college town, and again, like I said, naive, I figured, oh, it's probably harmless and it'll save me some time. Why not? When I get in the car, and this part is key, I tell this guy exactly where I'm going. I tell him that a friend is waiting for me, and I'm also like actively texting her like, hey, I'm getting a ride, and hey, I'm gonna be there in 5 minutes or whatever. Those simple actions are what saved me that night. A few days later, a mass email went out to the entire student body from the police department in my college town, and it basically said, if you recognize this car, please call the police department. I did recognize the car from getting in it a few nights prior and was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is the same car. So I called the police department. They ended up having me come in and give a statement because it turns out that that guy had ended up assaulting a woman and they wanted to prove a pattern of behavior. Luckily, again, I ended up okay, but I think that's a good anecdote for showing why when someone is expecting you, it can deter people who have nefarious intentions from following through on them. So yeah, if you're in a hitch, I would recommend talking about how your trail family is in town and you're meeting up with them as soon as you get there. Even if that's not true, if you're a solo hiker and you prefer to stay solo, your hitch doesn't necessarily need to know that. This is especially important, I think, if you are getting kind of weird vibes from the person who happened to pick you up, because I think a creep knowing that someone is gonna notice you missing is a potentially very powerful tool. The next tip I have for hitchhiking as a solo woman is to avoid hitchhiking after dark. I feel like this is probably common sense for a lot of people, but worth including here. This is also probably safer all around because at night are obviously going to be harder to see from the road. You don't really want to be on the side of a road where cars are driving, just in case someone like isn't paying attention and happens to go off the road a little bit. It can be dangerous for a lot of different reasons. Personally, I just try to get to any road crossings before dark, or if I know I'm not going to make it, I'll set up camp and wait to go in the morning. I also think you have a lot better luck of actually getting picked up because honestly, to a lot of people who pick up hitchhikers, we are scary. The hitchhikers are scary. And so they're not gonna wanna really pick up people after dark as well. Finally, when it comes to hitchhiking as a solo woman while backpacking, I like to adapt the saying, fake it till you make it. If you're typically a shy, quiet, introverted person, not in this hitch you're not. I think it helps to fake assertiveness until you make it to your destination. This can also apply in situations where if your driver happens to be saying some very off-color things that you normally wouldn't tolerate, fake it again until you make it. I'm normally all for standing up to people and letting them know that what they're saying is completely inappropriate, but as a hitchhiker who is already in somebody's car, you're unfortunately in a very vulnerable position. I believe it's best for the time being to not give them a reason to dislike you. This is probably the most common unsavory hitchhiking experience that I hear about from thru-hiking friends who have unfortunately had to sit through car rides with people who are saying things that are just blatantly offensive. You don't have to enthusiastically agree with them or anything, but I honestly wouldn't say anything to ruffle feathers while you're still in their car, especially if you can tell that they have a disposition where it might set them off. Fake it till you make it to your destination. And if you get dropped off in a place where you feel safe, feel free to let your feelings be known once you are safely out of the car and have removed all of your belongings. But again, I think unfortunately hitches are just not the place to sort of debate someone on their worldview, even if it's not something that you would typically let slide. Finally, I want to really reiterate that a fear of hitchhiking should not stop you from thru-hiking or backpacking. You can pretty much avoid it, or at the very least, avoid going alone if you don't feel comfortable. I've hitchhiked many times alone as a woman and luckily never had an issue. I think it has a lot to do with being in areas where people know about the trail and they know what you're doing there. It's not something I would necessarily try in a busy city or on a random highway unless I absolutely had to. I have had intoxicated people pull over. I've had people say some weird things to me, but luckily I've never gotten super creepy vibes or had someone try to do anything scary. Obviously there could be some survivor bias here, and I don't want to minimize in any way people's very real experiences with bad situations, but I also don't want a fear of hitchhiking to stop anyone from realizing their thru-hiking dreams. I think we can do a lot to minimize the danger of it by just being prepared and aware of our surroundings, which as women and feminine presenting people, we are honestly doing very often every day anyway. If you have any questions or experiences you'd like to share, please leave them in the comments. And thank you so much for watching.